always great when we get the opportunity to talk the Washington Nationals with Jake Russell. Does a great job covering the squad with the Washington Post. Jake, good to see you. I hope you've had a great summer.
I have so far. How about you?
Very much so. We get to have, Commanders coming up very soon. It's been a busy time. Of course, we've got a lot to talk about with this Washington Nationals team. And let's start with Sunday's MLB draft. Of course, a lot of people very curious who the team would select with that #1 overall spot. They land on a high school shortstop from Oklahoma, Eli Willits. I'm curious your thoughts on this pick, Jake.
So going into the draft, pretty much any draft, I kind of view the #1 overall pick as kind of who the favorite has been mocked to the #1 pick. And whether it's the NFL draft, MLB draft, NBA, I kind of just have that set in my mind months in advance. And if it stays that way the whole time, that's kind of who I have in my brain. So the whole time I've been thinking it would be Ethan Holiday up until like the last few days or so when, you started reading rumblings about they might not necessarily go his way and take him. They might, select Kate Anderson, the pitcher out of LSU. They might take Eli Willis, another infielder out of Oklahoma, a high school infielder out of Oklahoma like Ethan Holiday is. So the last few days I started questioning myself as to who would be the #1 pick. And then the Nats ultimately went with Eli Willits, a high school shortstop out of Oklahoma, the youngest guy in the draft, only 17 years old. So that it remains to be seen what comes out of that. But you can only take the Nats at their word. They said they believed he's the best player in the draft. And interim GM Mike Barlow said it was unanimous. The whole front office believed he was the best player in the draft, best hitter, the best defender. So if that's their consensus, then ultimately it looks like they made the right pick.
Well, you mentioned interim GM Mike DiBartolo, not Mike Rizzo, a name, of course, Nats fans have been very familiar with, has been the GM here since 2009. Him and Dave Martinez, of course, getting the boot last Sunday. I mean, that set the stage for what we expected would be a very confusing, very stressful Sunday night for this Nationals franchise because, who would have thought this was going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. The timing of it all was really strange with a week to go to the draft, just a couple weeks before the trade deadline, making such a big move. And also reportedly, Mike Rizzo and Dave Martinez had options to be picked up in July. And so I guess the thought process with the learners was, if we're not picking up their option, we're not going to have them working as lame duck general manager and lame duck manager for the rest of the season. And they possibly didn't want another Jim Riggleman situation coming about with Davey Martinez saying, yeah, we're not picking up your option. And then he quits and they have to scramble for, finding a replacement. So that's how that went down this past week. So that was a little surprising for me in regards to the timing. Mike Rizzo I view him as one of the best general managers in all of baseball. So for me, I'm very skeptical of ownership's ability to find a better replacement.
Well, you mentioned your thoughts on Rizzo, and that's where I wanted to truly ask you about the legacy he leaves behind, him and Davey Martinez, because, they won that World Series. Of course, everyone's going to remember for years to come, but it's also been 6 years ago at this point, and this team had not made the postseason since that World Series in 2019. What sort of legacy do these two men leave behind here in Washington?
So for Rizzo, it's the first thing I think of is he's just a wizard when it comes to trades. It's hard to, think of a trade that he really lost on. There have been a couple that haven't panned out the way the rest of his did, but overall, he tends to get blood from a stone when it comes to trades. I don't know how he's so good at that, but also the negative side is how far behind it comes in terms of drafting. The drafts the last 10 years have not bared much fruit. So that's the biggest downside with him the last few years was his inability to, create impactful drafts that, come up through the minors and make a big impact right away. Also, another part of the legacy is free agency. The learners have been very frugal is a nice way to put it, and have not been giving him much of a purse to work with and operate out of. And he also last couple of years has not been making the most out of the little bit of money he's been given to acquire free agents too. So it's tough to evaluate in that regard. Overall, he has shown when given the finances to build a quality roster, he knows how to do it. And obviously, as you described, it built up to a 2019 World Series championship.
Before I let you go, I do want to end on a positive note. So give me one thing you have been very pleased about with this year's squad.
Oh, James Wood, obviously, he's blossomed, and that's the easy low hanging fruit right there. He's blossomed into a star right before our eyes. 22 years old, all star, home run derby participant. I think he's even better than he's been advertised, because obviously when he came over in the trade, I believe Robert Hassel III was a more highly regarded prospect in that acquisition. But the last couple of years, he's shown he's just so consistent. He's got power. He's got vision. He's very patient at the plate, for better or for worse. He's not, aching to just swing at every pitch. He's waiting for what comes to him. And when he delivers, he's got so much power, and he can go to all aspects of the field, left, center, right field. He hits it everywhere. He's just such a well-polished and well-rounded player at such a young age. He's just been so fun to watch, and just so fun to see him grow right in front of our eyes. It's going to be fun to see how he does the second half of the season.
Yeah, I love ending on a positive note, and Jake Russell, you did exactly that. Thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, as always.
Of course. All right, stay with us. We've got more Toyota Sports Talk coming up on the other side of the break.